Tea and herbs? Let's try and use this for basing. Hello there guys, and welcome back to another video from Frog Lane Studio. So, as we all know, the amount of different basing materials out there on the marketplace is absolutely huge. But that being said, a lot of us find ourselves stuck indoors at the moment, and I wanted to see exactly how much free basing material I had at home. Now, being a Brit, I love my tea, so I thought this would be a good basis to start from. I plan to make a base just using tea and herbs. Let's see what we can get up to. So with the premise set then, this is an Earl Grey tea bag, not just any one, but a proper English cup of tea. Now, the granules themselves of the tea bag, the crushed tea leaves, make awesome mulch for the detritus that you'd find on a forest floor, for example. So we're going to use this as the basis. We're going to tip that in, and next up I've managed to find some basil. Basil makes really good. If you have a look, it's quite largely chopped. These are dried, so you don't want to be using fresh herbs, you want to be using dried herbs. And the basil itself has nice thick leaves attached to it. So what we're going to do, we're just going to give that a quick crush up and then pop that in. So you can use absolutely any herbs that you guys find, but I chose 5 here, just purely down to either the colour or the texture of them. Certainly not the smell for these models, but they do smell very nice nevertheless. Now this sage here, this is quite a twiggy herb, and so what you're going to get with this is lots of fine little twigs in the mix as well, and it's going to add to that realism that we see on the forest floor. So everything here is in miniature scale, obviously. Some of it's going to need to get mushed up a little bit more, some bits you can just use as is, but into the pot the sage goes. Next up, I grabbed some oregano, or as the Americans like to call it, oregano. This stuff was already quite finely chopped, but I still needed it just a little bit thinner as well. So as you can see there, it's more leafy texture, different colours on there, different textures. So this one just needed a little bit of smudging before going into the mix. And next one is parsley. Now I am very partial to parsley, and if you only have one herb, I definitely recommend this one. Parsley makes great dried leaves in terms of the miniature basing world, so we're going to add some of that in there as well. Now the last one is tarragon, great with fish. But you might not necessarily have this. Don't worry about it. This I've chosen specifically because of the dark brown colour on there. It looks very much like dried out leaves. And so what we're going to do with this one is quite coarse, so it's designed as a rub. But what I wanted to do was to get that even finer. So you can use a pestle and mortar, but I chose here just to use my hands and fingers because we're using dried herbs. They tend to compound down quite nicely. We'll give it a little bit of a mix up, get it all mulched in there together, and hey presto, that is our basing mix done. Our next step then is to base the base. We're going to base the base? Yeah, we're going to base the base to start off with. I'm using sand here. Now this is seaside sand that I've had for about 13 odd years. I'm using super glue as well. You can use PVA glue, but I always find I'm in a rush, so I get the super glue out. This is carpenter's glue, it's quite thick. I'm going to use a nail just to spread it around to get a nice even mix on there. If you use thin super glue here, what you're going to tend to find is it's going to drip off the base, so you want quite a thick glue when you're doing this sand process here, just so that it stays on the top of the base. Then it's just a case of dipping it into the sand, dipping off the excess, and then we're done. Our next step here, I'm using distressed ink here, but you can use any brown ink at all. What we're wanting to do is get a nice dark brown base to represent the soil. You don't want to stick the herbs and tea straight on top of a black base. You want to have something underneath there. So this sand and then just dark brown ink over the top is going to give a really nice undercoat for us to then stick the tea leaves and herbs on top of. So you're just going to need to leave that to dry once it's done. And it takes about 15 minutes, but it's not too bad at all. After we've let that dry then, we're going to switch across to some thin super glue. So the thin super glue is going to give us a really nice coverage across this base. It's just going to slowly sink into the sand and then enable the herbs to bind nice and secure to the sand itself without glooping anywhere. So it's going to be looking quite natural in terms of its approach. The other good reason, of course, for using super glue as opposed to PVA glue here as well is that not only does it dry thin, but it also dries really quickly, which is going to allow you to build the depth of the base up quite quickly. So here I'm just focusing on small spots, adding the super glue, then going in and adding bits of the herbs and the tea, shaking off any excess, assessing the model to see whether any more bits need adding, and then going ahead and just adding those bits in. But this is the base essentially done. Now you can add as much or as little of this as you want. You could combine it with rocks or caulking basing material, but for myself what I wanted to do was have this really nice base that looked as if it was underneath a canopy of a rainforest where the mulch had been building up for quite some time. But that is essentially the basing done for this model. Now, being an avid modeler, I don't just have this stuff lying about, I have a lot of other basing materials as well. So I wanted to try out, these are meadow flowers and lowland shrubs from Army Painter, and I wanted to see what this would look like with these added on top of them as well. I've also got here, this is actually sofa material sponge out of the back of a sofa that's been ground up and then dyed green. So I have these additional basing materials and I just wanted to add some extra on there just to have a play about to see what it would look like. These lowland shrubs and battlefield tufts from Army Painter are really good. They come already assembled as they are like this, and all they need is a little blob of super glue on the back. I'm using some tweezers here just to apply them in. And then because of the herby base on there, I'm just going to give it a quick press down. And this is going to make sure that it's nice and secure on the model and it's not just sitting on top of some loose herbs, for example. But yeah, we're going to have a play about with this and see what we come up with. As with all basing though, it comes down to personal interpretation and a bit of artistic license as well. I really hope that these bases have inspired you to try something a little bit new. You don't need to spend £30-40 on basing products. You can see the main basing things that I've used here is just the tea and the various herbs. Everything else on top then is just an accent for the base. So if you can't go out and you are stuck indoors, I really hope that I've inspired you to maybe look at some of the products and things that you have in your house and look at those a little differently and think, you know, maybe I could actually use that for a base. Here's the final model, and just to give you some scale, I've popped one of my orcs on top of it, and you can really see that aside from the normal traditional fantasy bases, this sort of thing on its own looks amazing, and in conjunction with other things like water effect or bark for trees, little twigs, you can really get some unique effects. I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with in terms of this. If you found this video useful, then you know what to do. Just click the link below, like, subscribe and comment. It really does help me out. If you've been finding my streams or videos useful at all, I'd also just like to mention that the channel does have a Patreon page, a link to which is just down below as well. And if you've learned or enjoyed something, then all support is greatly appreciated, as it allows me to continue to support you guys. Channel Patreons receive various benefits, such as requesting tutorial content or hourly one-to-one hobby sessions with myself. We also have a fantastic Discord community there, and the more subscribers that we can get, the more giveaways we can do. Speaking of which, I also have an amazing opportunity to give back. I'm charity raffling a British bolt action army. The Just Giving page link is also down below as well. In any case, a massive thank you to all of my Patreons: Paul Spencer, Death Corpse Master, Eater of Cities, Full Circle, Honor Sanguinius, Hive Army, Jeans and a Shirt, Keith, Loco Drydog, MDH, Midget Gems, Mogsy, Mr. Tumnus, Not There But Trying, Original Sin, Past 7 Painting, Mr. and Mrs. Ritz and Bits, Mr. and Mrs. Monkey, Stephen 101, Sonorous, The Secret Paintbrush, Ryan, Venom, Sons of Syndrome, and of course, the ever indomitable Mrs. Frog. Guys, thank you so much, and to you guys as well for watching. I couldn't do this without you. Take care, I'll see you next time, and may your brushes always be pointed.